For this session, I was thinking to present a little bit about what Kamailio can do beyond telephony, beyond voice over IP, and I'll come back actually to the question that Fred had, because yeah, with presence, I covered a little bit in this presentation, and sometimes you need to do some tricks to make it interoperable across some devices. I have my usual slide to introduce myself. For those that don't know me, practically I'm a software developer by education. I ended up in real-time communication more than 20 years ago, and more or less I do this from that time with this project that Fred actually presented. I have also quickly the timeline, but Fred gave the details as well. So we went through all these years with a couple of names like SIP Express Router at the Fraunhofer Fokus Institute in Berlin, Germany, where all this started related to our project. Then we had a fork on OpenSCR for a few years, and due to a trademark issue, we ended up with the current name Kamailio, which is a Hawaiian word meaning to talk, to converse. So it has somehow a relation to our, let's say, voice over IP telephony. And yeah, we all organize our own event, Kamailio World, in so far only in Berlin, Germany. Next year will be like 13th edition or so, so we are not as old as ClueCon, but trying to catch up. Shortly about Kamailio for those that are new here at the conference, and they are coming mostly from the free switch or other AI different fields of our business. Practically, it's a SIP packet router, so it's not really like a telephony engine that you might be used to if you come from Asterix or free switch. But then we can manage everything at the SIP layer. We can add, remove headers, we can change everything that you don't like or some devices don't expect to have there. You have really low control over everything that's related to SIP. But then you need a little bit more knowledge of the protocol. So practically it's you that instructs Kamailio what can do. And yeah, we have like spatial configuration file language, which is like scripting, which is designed from scratch, but lately we had very good support for embedding the Lua, Python, JavaScript are the most well used, but we have a couple of other variants. So in case you don't feel like learning another scripting language from scratch, you can use one of them and you don't have any impact, like visible impact on performances. As Fred said, we target quite a lot and we are very scalable in terms of handling registration and call setups per second. If you are interested to see what we've been doing lately, considering that SIP is a well-established protocol, not much new being released from the ITF or other standardization groups. But still, we keep providing like a good set of new features. We have more or less like 10 to 12 months of new release cycles. And I pointed out here a couple of our extensions modules that were out. Some work related to this IMS 5G, 4G, voice over LTE, voice over new radio, integration with InfluxDB. Some new extensions related to HTTP, and I'll have some slides about alternative for SSL for the TLS secure communication of the SIP channel. So we had libSSL support so far. We got recently, like 1 year ago, Wolf SSL as an alternative. So you have the links if you want to see the full feature. These are only like new modules, but with every new major release, we do a lot of new features to existing modules. So it's not only like adding new modules. That being said, let's go to the main topic of this presentation, so capabilities of Kamailio beyond the telephony scope of session initiation protocol. And yeah, we can do instant messaging, and since here, let's say the main topic seems to be artificial intelligence, probably this would be a field where you could integrate Kamailio eventually with the AI, ChatGPT, or translator of the messages. So I put it here as a hint where you could eventually do a better integration. Now, looking back at the SIP, there is support for instant messaging from like very beginning of the protocol specification. This kind of like simple message transmission using the message request type, which for Kamailio is like routing any other SIP packet, SIP request. So actually, we don't care if it's message or if it's invite or if it's option, or could be also your own SIP method type. Actually, in Kamailio, we have like KDMQ, message request type that we use for replication of states between Kamailio node. So we are very flexible from this point of view. You can invent your own method, and Kamailio can route it based on the typical routing headers that we have in SIP with record route, with via headers, and so on. In the scripting language, sometimes you might need to do special processing. So how you catch there is a message with a message request type. So we have the keyword like method, or the variable $rm, or the function is method. So all of them do the same at the end. And having it in your request route block, practically, you know now there is an instant message passing through Kamailio. You can check if it's the target now, it's a local user, then you can do lookup location and relay it. You see it's a mobile number, you can send it to a GSM gateway. So it's up to you. You can integrate it with, I don't know, some translation. You see that is going to a user that speaks Spanish. You can use Babel or other translation, Google Translate, to get the body. So here, the $RB in red in the example gives you the body of that message. And we provide also functions that you can replace the existing body with a new content. So here, it's up to you to add additional services, additional features using our scripting language, or you can use a Python, either embedded or inline execution. It might provide more libraries related to AI. You can also do some filtering, like detecting bad words and, you know, kind of spam filtering if you focus on instant messaging using SIP as a protocol and Kamailio as an engine for routing it. Another module that we have in Kamailio related, it's mSilo module. This is like store and forward. So you get a message and you detect that the target user is not online. So you can store it in a backend like a database. And when that user is registering, Kamailio can send a message to the contact of that new registration. So practically, we have like if the user is not online, so this lookup location will return false, and we see it's a message with this method condition, then we call mStore and we send a reply from Kamailio like, okay, I store it, it's a 202, it's not 200, okay, it's not delivered to the final target. We keep it, let's say, in the middle. And also in Kamailio config file, we have this route register for handling register request. We call the usual save location if you look at the default config file. And after that, as we have the contact for the user that just did the registration, we call the mDump, which goes to the backend, fetches for the current registration user, if they are message, of course, and if they are, then they will be sent to that contact. And you have the option to delete it. You have a couple of other features there, like time-based delivery, like reminders, so provides you quite some flexibility here. Next module that I want to present will be IMC, Instant Messaging Conferencing module. There is no standard protocol to control chat room from SIP point of view. So this is rather old, and actually it's inspired from the IRC, where you have like a start character to indicate it's a command. So practically you can use any SIP soft phone that has capability for instant messaging, and then here the example is with slash, but you can put any character to indicate that's gonna be a command. And then you have like create, join, and each of these commands can have one or two or no parameters. For example, you can leave a conference room, you can invite someone to join your conference room, and so on. In Kamailio configuration file, we tried to handle it automatically, so not so many conditions on the command, so everything is kind of embedded in this IMC manager function from this module. Usually you need some conditions, of course, to check it's a message, but then you kind of partition the traffic based on prefix, so you see it's a real user, or if it's some pattern that you kind of allocate or dedicate to these chat rooms. Could be like here by domain, so manager at chat and your domain, I put here XYZ, but could be also in the user part. You can prefix these chat rooms with token of your preference. If you develop your own application, practically you can hide this kind of control protocol behind some buttons, like, you know, create a room. It's a button which will take only the room name, and your application will do this, you know, using the right domain or the right prefix to indicate it is for a conference room, and will send the right control command. The README of the module presents the available commands. I think there are like 11 or so. I just made some screenshots to see that there are a couple of them, but I'm not going to go over all of them. As I said, this is pretty good documentation, and if you have further questions, you can ask me during this event or via our chat forums like a mailing list or Matrix chat room. We can help you further if you go this way. From the ITF, and this is part of the group of extensions called Simple, which is a bit ironic because they are not simple at all, which includes also the presence I'm covering next. There is actually a protocol, a standard protocol related to instant messaging. It's called MSRP, Message Session Relay Protocol, which is somehow similar to RTP in the way that it's a separate channel than the signaling channel. So this is for real-time chatting that they start as a call. So it's an invite, and in the SDP it's an indication that I want to do also chat. Could be combined with audio and video, could be chat alone, and then through a MSRP relay, you exchange some messages which look like on the right side. I have an example. Looks a little bit similar, like some headers from path success report and so on, the same name colon value, but practically you don't have it SIP as it was previously with the SIP message request. And then Kamailio acts as a relay and can forward these kind of messages from one user to another. This protocol has also authentication, so you don't have to use Kamailio SIP-based authentication. You can use also MSRP authentication to allow users to connect to Kamailio acting as an MSRP relay. I haven't seen implementation of this protocol. It's adopted by 3GPP and supposed to be used on mobile world, but so far I haven't seen it. At some point there was a WebRTC SIP client that tried to implement it, but I think it's discontinued. I haven't seen it lately. So that would be about the instant messaging, what we support, and some of them are more used than the others. Next will be the presence services. There was a question before for Fred. There are two models in SIP. The very first one, which is not recommended or considered to be obsolete, but some services are still using it because it's simpler. Not the SIP simple, it's just the literal simple approach. It's only subscribe, notify, and Kamailio acts only as a proxy, so it doesn't keep states. You can keep states if you want with modules like htables or in the backend, but the idea is that every user device subscribes and Kamailio forwards to the other user device, and then will get notified from the endpoint. For IoT, this could be sometimes simpler because it could be one-to-one subscription. You don't have a watcher for many present entities. And from Kamailio point of view, as I said, it's usual SIP routing. Subscribe comes in, lookup location, relay, and that's it. When that endpoint changes the states, we'll send the notify to Kamailio, Kamailio will forward to the right device, and this is all. This will be like a dialogue communication. So we have the invite-based dialogue, and the second one in SIP will be subscribe-based dialogue. What was actually later added by the ITF would be these SIP simple extensions, which became quite complex because it's not only SIP at the end, it involves HTTP and XCAP document format. And besides subscribe, notify, there is also publish. So this is the presence agent model, where an entity sends states to the server via publish. The server, the present server, handles the subscribe locally, and based on receive publish, will send many notifies. So the idea here is for each state change, there is a single publish, and then from the present servers will be as many notifies as number of watchers, active watchers at that moment for the present entity. But then the management of this contact list, which allows to see my present states and what I'm watching myself, like the present entity list for myself, it's managed via HTTP using the XCAP, which is XML-based document format. And we have support, but there are problems with scalability and there are problems with interoperability because the XML document format, everyone interprets and puts different attributes. But for user presence, like online, offline, out to lunch, and so on, our extensions are in presence and presence XML modules. And we have some presence user agents, so Kamailio acting as an endpoint actually, to send publish for different use cases, like turning a registration into a publish, to say now this user is offline. So you have an old Dex phone and you want to show it to the other that it's online, then we have this, it's a custom implementation, it's not like based on the standard, it's just the format that, okay, we got a registration, we see the user, it's online, we create a publish with the appropriate format. And in the config file should be rather simple. So again, based on this filtering on the request type, if it's publish, handle publish, if it's subscribe, handle subscribe, all those processing is done in the C code. So we try to simplify it for the config, but behind it's a lot of XML management, updating parts of XML, merging XML, and so on. This is not much used, actually, like user presence. What's more used would be dialog states, dialog info. And this is more like class 5 telephony services with blinking lamps and call pickup or bridge line appearance. We have two modules in the presence group, like presence dialog info and PUA dialog info. And here you will need dialog module to track the states of the calls, like ringing state, in terminated at the end, or it's connected, so established calls. And these modules actually work behind the other presence module, so it's practically part of this handle publish, handle subscribe. The PUA dialog info will generate publishes for every state, and presence dialog info based on the received publish, which could be internally, like looping inside Kamailio, will generate notifies to the phones that are watching for dialog info states. But then there are many other modules that we have related to the presence. Fred mentioned PUA JSON that could be easy or could be used to integrate with external application that could push states in JSON format, and Kamailio will translate them in the standard XML format for sending out notifies. From the 3GPP and mobile world will be reg info. You can see sometimes is this pair of PUA reg info and then presence reg info. Management of the profiles, like configuration of the devices. Generated states via RPC commands. So we have, as I said, several modules. You have the link to the list of the modules, so then you can read more about it. Going over in more details will not be enough time here, as I said, we have several of them. Related to the presence, as I mentioned, there is another kind of protocol which is more like a document format because it's transmitted over HTTP. This will be XCAP. It's an RFC. In Kamailio, we have both XCAP server that gets the request from the endpoints, and we have an XCAP client which could be used by a Kamailio instance to interact with another Kamailio instance which acts as a XCAP server. And here is mostly about XML management and requires quite a lot of handling in the config file. I put it, I'm not gonna go, but I wanted to show that it's quite some operation that you have to do for handling XCAP. Sometimes you have to also update the XML document that you receive from the endpoint to make it compatible with other endpoints. And you can also do authentication for the XCAP protocol itself. So not use directly the SIP authentication. Here it's like you'll have to advertise to the clients, to the endpoints, capabilities in the XCAP space. So practically what you see here in red, it's a single XML document that it's sent back to the user when they want to see what Kamailio can do in the XCAP space. And then based on the HTTP, so Kamailio has an embedded HTTP server. Based on the HTTP method, like it's put, it's delete, it's get, there are various operations that you'll have to do. You can check on headers, on request URI, authentication username. So practically it's something similar like with SIP traffic, you can apply it for the XCAP traffic. Again, I'm not gonna explain all these functions. You have the link to the documentation when you have also some other examples that could make it easier to understand. So this would be related to the presence with subscribe, notify, publish, and then XCAP over HTTP. I just wanted to highlight now, because also Fred mentioned it, sometimes to integrate with external application, you might need this message queue connectors, brokers. There are many of them that we support: Kafka, NATS, NSQ, MQTT, RabbitMQ. You might need none of them. So if you don't know what they mean, usually means that you don't really need them. But if rings a bell and you actually use it for other products, might make your might make your life easier to use it with Kamailio as well. Other useful extension like integrating with ChatGPT or translation would be the HTTP-related modules. I have a couple of them on the client side and also a couple of them on the server side if you want to send to Kamailio HTTP traffic. I just list them here because last year I had a presentation about API integration, external API servers and so on with Kamailio. And you have the link to the presentation and all these, or the main HTTP-related modules were presented last year in more details. For JSON, also, they were good, or they were in more details presented last year. So you have the link to it. And for XML operations, then we have XML ops. As I said, in presence, there is a lot of XML. You might need to change it to make it interoperable. This will be the module that you have to use, so you can access attributes and you can update content of those XML sent by the endpoints or the ones that you want to send to other endpoints. And don't forget that we have these embedded interpreters, Python, Lua. They have very good extensions for XML, for JSON. So if our scripting language is somehow limited, this could be another option for more flexibility. And to end, practically not related to the topic, but I know that in ESA, Stir Shaken, it's a hot topic these days. There is a project that is related to our Kamailio. Kamailio has also module for Stir Shaken. Actually, it has two. This one is maintained by me with the XCAP ID project. It offers also like an API server and also a CLI tool for testing and zip-exer that could be useful for testing, including presence and instant messaging. You can use it from command line over TLS, over a WebSocket, so you can interact with Kamailio or FreeSwitch or Asterix for testing and proving your ideas eventually in your labs. That's it. I'm a little bit over the time, but if it's one question or two.
No problem at all, Daniel. You're doing very, very well. We're on an on-time delivery this morning, so thank you for that. Any questions for Daniel? Not often you get an opportunity to speak directly to the head man in the Kamailio project. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, very good presentation. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Have you been following any of the, it's broadly referred to as either rich calling or interactive calling or branded calling, and all of the impacts that may have on you? I don't know if it has any. For example, extensions to Stir Shaken or adding a data channel capability to the SIP stack. Have any of that touched you? Do you have any visibility into that?
Yeah, I mean, the Stir Shaken increased the size of the signaling message, usually the invite, quite considerably, and some people still face this UDP fragmentation, and identity header is quite big. Then could have impact on performance in the way that with identity header you have a URL to the certificate that you should use for verification, and that could, you know, block Kamailio, like going to another server that is not under your control.
Oh yes, oh yes. So I asked, branded calling is a thing that impacts the evolution of SIP, and I just wanted to see if that had, if that's touched you or not.
The impact depends. I mean, like Fred said, the cache, it's important, and we do it also with this URL, like getting the certificates, and the role of Kamailio here is more like validating the signature, and in that JSON, which is in the identity, you have brand calling. You can see more information about the caller that you can also use for authentication or detecting of speed from whatever reasons point of view. So can enable some features, but there's also more processing from this point of view, so can impact your scalability a little bit there.
Thank you, Daniel. And I can tell by Jack's face, look at his happy face, that he considers that question very well answered indeed. Good stuff. Any more questions for Daniel before we go to our break? Going once, going twice. Well, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Daniel.
Thank you, everyone.